Okay, so I'm pretty sure we are now live. So let me make sure I've got what I need here and we'll go ahead and get started. Give me just one moment. Been looking forward to chatting with you all day long. Got a lot of things to share. Okay, there it is. Let me minimize that. Perfect. So it is Wednesday night. Today is Wednesday. What is this? February the Let me find my calendar. I'm a little off on my dates. What is the day's date? Today's February the 7th. Perfect. So it's crazy because 2024 is evolving at such a brisk pace. I think for most of us, we came into 2024 knowing that things would be different, things feel different. So it's just up to us to keep going and seeing what we can build with what we have. Of course, I'm Ethan. It's just me tonight. Tonight, we have a very unique topic we'll be talking about, and that's going to be revolving around preparing for your first trip to the continent of Africa. And so, because we've got a lot of people that are a part of the shift community or that are tied to us some kind of way that are very much so interested in understanding what is this last frontier? What is this thing that people are excited about that we call Africa. So I want to help you get ready for your first trip. For those people that will be making their first trip here, whether it be in March with us with Shift for our Shift Tours event, or whether you're planning your own independent trip, just want to make sure I share a few things with you tonight that'll help you get yourself ready for that. But before we dive into that, a couple of current events. One thing that's happening here on the continent is what is this? AFCON. AFCON. I think I saw where the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, was having some really people were calling it luck. Last second victories. So that's something that's really fun. Is bringing people together for the chance to engage. Soccer is such a really big deal here on the continent. It's one of those things. It's just like American football, the way we look at it. Folks are gearing up for the Super Bowl. I am a long-time 49er fan, so I'm looking forward to. I don't know if I should watch the game or not, being that, when I don't watch, we seem to win. And when I do watch, we just never know what's going to happen. So, nonetheless, just a few current events of what's going on. So, let's dive right into the topic that I want to chat with you tonight, which is about preparing for your first trip to come to the continent of Africa. And so, I'm basically going to give you an overview of how I would prepare, but then also just in general terms, because I wouldn't want everybody to do it the way I do it. My first time coming to the continent of Africa was in June 2021. I just finished teaching my second year of ninth grade interpersonal studies and professional communications at I was doing some work at a charter school or for a charter school, helping them with some personal development things for their children. And so at the end of the school year, I decided that it was time. I had used my time during COVID to do research and to really get comfortable with the idea of coming here. And so in June of 2021, I boarded a plane in New York City, bound for Nairobi, Kenya. And I was very nervous, I had taken months to prepare. I didn't know what to expect. So many people are very ignorant on what they know about Africa or what they believe about the continent. And, I was in that same boat too, but I knew I had to make the trip to begin the process of understanding what's on the other side. And so one thing I like to say now is hello from the other side. So the number one thing you're gonna need, let's jump right into it. The number one thing you need to make your first trip to the continent of Africa is very simple. You have to have your passport. I have to say that. So for people that aren't starting from that position, I do believe you can spend $165 to get a passport. You can get the application from your local post office. You can also schedule an appointment at most post offices to take your passport photo. So you fill out the application. It's about 4 pages. Get you a couple of copies in case you mess up, or fill it out online and print it so you don't have to worry about your mistakes. You get your appointment, you go to the post office, you pay your money. You also need to make sure you have an original copy of your birth certificate. Okay, that's what's going to be you. That's what's going to be your ticket to getting an American passport is having that original copy of your birth certificate. You need to have the application, $165, and you can also get your passport photo taken right there at the airport. And so what happens is about 6 weeks later, that's the United States of America saying, hey, you can leave the country. You're someone, we've given you the green light to leave the country. And don't ask me why we need that permission, but that's the system that we've inherited. So that's step one. I remember, I think it was 2014 or 15 when I got my passport, and it was so exciting because now I knew I had to use it, right? Because I now have one of these passes that not everyone has. Not all citizens have their passport. I find in other foreign countries that it's almost like getting a driver's license. People have a passport, whereas in the United States it's not as common to have a passport as it is to have a driver's license, which is kind of almost what it is across the world from what I've seen, at least in East Africa. And maybe that's because in the States, we feel, we're in the best place ever to live. So why would I want to leave and go anywhere else? And I understand that position. But if you are someone that's planning for your first trip to the continent of Africa, you must have that passport. It's going to cost you about $165. The next thing you got to make sure you have, and again, this is beginner's level for people that are yet to take this step, you got to get a visa. You got to get a visa. And so what I would recommend is that you get an East African tourist visa, because what that's going to do is it's going to give you the ability to be on the ground in three different East African countries, Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda all are going to be on that East African tourist visa. It's going to cost you $100, and you can get it. You want to get it to the country that you're going to be entering in. So if your flights from, for example, JFK has flights on Thursdays, then they come directly to Nairobi, Kenya. So if you're entering through Nairobi, Kenya, but you're going to be wanting to go and see Kigali, Uganda, or you're going to want to go to the source of the Nile River in Jinja, Uganda, then you'll be best served getting a East African tourist visa. And again, this is an elementary type of discussion. So for those people that aren't familiar, if the United States gives you a passport that says, hey, you can travel outside the country, that visa gives you the right to enter into another nation. And so you have to get one for each nation that you plan to go to. However, some nations have partnerships. For example, if you're from the United States, you can go to Mexico without a visa. I think you can also go to, for example, Thailand as an American citizen without a visa. If you're, for example, a Ugandan, you can go to Jamaica without a visa. You can go to Mauritius without a visa. And I think even Kenya is a country now that allows people to enter from anywhere without a visa, but that's not common. So that's absolutely something that you need to have, and it's going to tell you how long you can stay and what things you can do. If you have a tourist visa, you just need to do tourist things. If you have a work visa, of course, you can get a job and stay longer. So again, preparing you for your first trip to the continent of Africa. The third thing you need, if you've got your passport or your visa, those are very rudimentary aspects of this thing. The third thing you got to have is the right mindset. And I think that's where a lot of us fall off, is because we think we would love to come, but we're not sure because we don't have the right mindset. Either we're afraid of the long flight, or we're afraid of what we'll inherit once we get on the ground, or we just are just terrified of the unknown, which is what you essentially are experiencing when you go to a foreign land. So you definitely have to have the right mindset to make that trip. And I think for me, it's really, you just got to have your mind made up that you're going to do it. That's going to be the starting point. Am I on board to do it? Am I going to do it? So that's the starting point, is your mindset. One thing I'll say about the part of the continent that I've been to is that the climate's a lot different. In some instances it's very hot, right? And you may come from a colder climate place, and so the climate's something you have to prepare for. The language, if you go to, one question people ask me it's always very common. People will say, well, what language do they speak? What language do they speak there? And, you know, for the most part, English is a globally accepted language. And so many people in East Africa, the countries I've been to, they of course have their native language, Swahili in Kenya, Luganda in Uganda, Aramaic in Ethiopia. But by and large, many people do speak English. I think what we find out from being here is that why the Western world is so dominant, because when you determine the language, it helps. It's the one thing that does combine people. It definitely creates a sense of community when you can break those barriers. But my point here is that by and large, wherever you travel to, most people can speak English or someone can speak English. I will say that in Ethiopia, when I was there, that was a little bit more difficult. Most people of their first language, which is, I think you pronounce it Amharic, is very dominant, and so English wasn't as common. The same thing in parts of Uganda, and I think, but a lot of it is related to how educated the person is. And I hate to say that because we also commonly equate the ability to speak English with intelligence. So when I say how educated, I mean simply did this person go to an international school or a school where English was being taught? And that is by and large the way people, measure that's how you can measure if someone does speak the language or not. But the language barriers do exist. But in the countries where you'll be coming to, which are Kenya and Uganda, English is very widely spoken and very much so it's an acceptable way to communicate. So still on the topic of mindset, though, once you get over that it might be hot or you may deal with a different level of air quality, because whereas in the States, we have to get our cars inspected. I don't know how it is in all the states, but in Texas, annually you go and you have to get an inspections to make sure your car is not emitting, certain gases into the atmosphere and polluting the air. Well, by and large, that is not a rule here. And so the air quality for some people becomes an issue. I think it's something that it just may take you a few days to really get adjusted to, or some folks wear masks, and wearing a mask is that's perfectly fine. But to me, I don't think it's something that's going to be a real deterrent, but it's one of the conveniences that we have to think about. Another convenience, as we still talk about mindset a bit here, is that, we're used to certain things when you go into a restaurant. For example, you might be used to ordering food and everyone gets their meal at the same time. Like that's by and large acceptable. Like if you didn't do that, it's like, why did what's happening? Why am I getting my food 5 minutes after, 10 minutes after my table? But one of the things that you have to realize is that people operate on a different system here, and it's very common for meals to come out very staggered. And so one of the common courtesies we do is to wait for everyone to be served. And so that may not be the case. You may have to wait a bit longer for your pasta versus, his, fish and chips. And so not only that with food, you also have to ask yourself what you're willing to stomach, because you're probably going to see cow hanging in the window. You're probably going to see live chicken that are going to be dinner that night. And so you have to really decide where you draw the line in the sand with how you feel about PETA, for example, right? Is it too much to know that that chicken was just living 10 minutes ago? Is it too much to know that, you saw that cow hanging in the window? And so these are things you have to mentally prepare yourself for. Most times we would equate these things to cleanliness, but I can assure you, by and large, the things here are abnormally clean, just maybe not by the eye test standard that you might take, but by and large, if you sat outside of a restaurant, you would probably see the workers mopping and cleaning and wiping things down at least twice an hour, which you don't, it may not be the case back home all the time. But so food is definitely something. So you have to decide, are you going to become a vegetarian for a week? Maybe you're going to, take on a different type of diet. But I can say, you do have to be mindful. I did suffer just a bit from, some of the stomach, the bubble guts as they call it in the beginning. But it's not as you don't need to be terrified of that as you make your way here. But food is certainly something you want to be prepared for. I've got to the point now where I'm okay with eating street food, and it's just a matter of are you big on presentation? Are you big on what it looks like, as people are preparing it, or you just want the end product? And if you're an end product kind of person, you'll love street food. You'll love what you get from, for the most part, by and large. On mindset, another thing, you got to be ready for is dealing with negotiating price. When you talk to people on the streets, for example, or when you're dealing with people are going to hear your accent. And so the first thing that comes with that is people believe America is the land of milk and honey by and large. So generally there is a belief that if you are an American, especially if you're traveling, you have money, which, let's to be honest, chances are you do have some expendable cash if you're on holiday in a place like Kenya or Uganda. So you probably do have money, or you may value things differently. Giving someone $5, that transfers into like 20,000 Ugandan shillings, for example, and that's enough money that could take someone for a whole week if they're just buying food from the market. So we'll be negotiating. Someone may, want to charge you, for example, 10,000 shillings, which is about $3. And but really the cost of that should really be, let's say, 5,000 shillings. So that's about $1.50. And so normally that's nothing you would really argue about. But on the streets, you're getting bamboozled because you're paying twice the price. And so you kind of have to decide, are you willing to put up with that? And also you have to decide, just by and large, how you're going to deal with money, seeing people that have needs, because you will on the ground, you're going to see people that in places where there is a great need, and just a little bit could help. And so maybe meeting you during the time you're here could be the blessing someone needed in their life at that moment. So you have to decide, how you'll manage money. I think that's very important when it comes to mindset, because you are viewed in many instances, not across the board, but by and large, that if you don't have money, you have access to money. And so you're a gatekeeper, and that brings a lot of responsibilities. So we're about halfway in. We'll be out here in just a minute, guys. It's just me tonight. It's Ethan, and this is Shift Talk. We come on Wednesdays and kind of chat about things related to what we're doing in the Shift community. So because we're gearing up to start bringing people over to the continent, this is a place that'll be a holder. People can always come here and listen to this to kind of mentally prepare for what the next steps look like. So we just mentioned the top three. You got to, of course, be able to have that pass from the State Department of the United States that says you can leave the country. So that's a passport. You got to have that visa, which says, hey, you can enter my country. And then the third thing that's very important, it's the mindset, preparing yourself to go into a completely different civilization and being able to look at things, for the most part, I want you to come here and take your American blinders off and be ready and willing to unlearn some things, but also be ready and willing to part knowledge and understanding with people. So those are the top three things. Three more quick hits, and then we're going to get out of here so that we can move on with the next phases of our day. But the next obvious thing you need whenever you're preparing for your first trip to East Africa is you got to have your plane ticket, guys. So we're going to help you to take care of getting that done. If you're a first timer, or your first time coming here or traveling internationally in general, you're going to want to, of course, have your round trip ticket. You're going to want to be very secure in knowing, okay, on this day and this time, I'm leaving to go. And on this day and this time, I'm leaving to come back. And that's traditionally how we always travel. You want to have a round trip ticket. And so we get that. So we certainly recommend that for our people. It's your first time traveling internationally or your first time coming to the continent. We want to have you fully set up with your round trip airfare. We typically here at Shift, we recommend the direct flights from the US to the continent. And you can take direct flights from Miami, several airports. Miami has a direct flight. I think it'll get you to Casablanca, Morocco, South Africa. Miami comes directly a couple other ways. Chicago has a couple of direct flights from the US to the continent. Houston will get you from, and we're talking about Bush here. Bush will get you from Houston to Qatar, or it can get you from Houston to Dubai. And then you can easily connect from Qatar or Dubai to East Africa, whether it be Ethiopia, Uganda, or to Kenya will get you right here. And then, of course, Atlanta has a couple of direct flights. I know you can get to Lagos, which is on the western part of the continent. You can also get to Addis, which is Ethiopia. And then those sites can be connectors to get to your end destination. I think I already said Miami. Of course, DC. You can go from all the airports in the DMV to get to the continent. Actually, the shortest flight, if you wanted to take the shortest flight that's going to get you from the U.S. to the continent, is going to be from DC, the airport that's in Virginia. It's gonna take you to Casablanca. It's about a 6 hour flight, and Casablanca's in Morocco. You can take a train from Casablanca to Marrakesh, Morocco, to Rabat, Morocco. Some very beautiful sights that can be seen there. If you just wanted to take the quickest flight to get here and say you've been, that's what you would take. And of course, I believe New York also has a couple of direct flights. I think one goes, of course, the one I took is to Kenya. And I also think one of the airports will get you to Addis Ababa if you want to go there. So now for my more seasoned travelers, you might just want to book a couple of one ways. You can book a one way to one city here, and then you can book a one way to another city. And before you know it, you book your one way back. And so you might book a series of one ways. And some folks will come just on having the one way ticket, excuse me, to get here and knowing you can buy your one way ticket back just whenever you get ready, or maybe you're going to go to another destination. But I wouldn't recommend that unless you're more of a seasoned international traveler and you kind of can understand, and you don't feel endangered at all knowing you don't have your full sets of flights. And so you have to determine the level of risk you want to take or how you see it, if you even see it as a risk. Because at this point, I only travel with one-way flights. And that's just because I know wherever I am, I can get a one-way flight to the next destination. And so one of the reasons why one way may work for some people better than others is not only the convenience that it offers, but also you can typically find better rates if you buy a series of one way tickets. For example, I typically will buy a one way ticket from JFK in New York to NBO, which is in Nairobi. And then if I want to travel from somewhere else, I'm just going to buy the one way ticket from Nairobi, whether it be to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, or to, for example, Kampala, Uganda, or Entebbe. So we'll help you figure out what's best for you, because with Shift, we specialize whatever it is you need. Again, this is the Shift Talk Show. I'm Ethan. I'm actually the founder of Shift Enterprise Academies. We come on Wednesdays to kind of chat with you about some things around our community. And tonight we're helping you prepare for your first trip to East Africa. And so we're almost out of here. We've got our flight, we've got our mindset right. We know how we're going to get there. And then, of course, one of the things that people are always intimidated by is where I'm going to stay. Is it safe here? Is it safe there? Am I going to get robbed? I can tell you one thing for sure as it relates to what I've found about whether it be the continent or other countries by and large. And that's that, you could wake up tomorrow and find out that 30 people were killed in a local restaurant somewhere in the United States. And then you're just going to keep living your life. We're going to be sad because no one wants to see people lose their life. But then you're going to continue going on with your day. Whereas many times you might hear about someone dying or a tourist having an accident in some part of East Africa, and that one-off situation then becomes you thinking maybe it's an unsafe place to go. So you just have to be able to judge safety based on, of course, we understand the Western culture better, so you feel maybe safer due to the infrastructure and the systems in place. But you just have to be real honest with yourself about what is the true idea of safety and security. With that being said, through my travels, Airbnb has been something that's really been helpful. One of the things I do with Airbnb, if you go the Airbnb route, I have found that, if you are a Marriott member or, you have a membership that's got a global presence, you can take that and that's going to give you the safety that you may want by and large, right? But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more personalized, or you want to go into a different part of the city and you choose Airbnb, the number one thing you want to do is make sure you first message the host. Don't assume because the listing is on the Airbnb site that it's legit, or that it's be available. Just because that's what you do in Houston or Austin or Paris or other places, you don't assume that that's the situation. You know, the rules of engagement vary different from city to city, country to country. But you definitely want to start out by simply sending a message confirming, hey, I'm coming into the city on this date with this many people. Is your place available for a check-in at this time? You know, you want to be very specific like that. And then the host is either going to invite you to book, and that's a code for yes, it is available, or they're going to message you back with some instructions. Sometimes people even try to take it offline. They might send you their number via on through the Airbnb app, but they send it to you written as a word, because otherwise Airbnb would likely flag if you use the word WhatsApp and you put a number in a numerical number in a chat. They're gonna flag that. But I've seen people, you know, write out the word of the number that people can connect with you on WhatsApp, and they'll take it offline just to have that conversation. But I still would look through the app, because that's where you're going to have your sense of security, especially if you've never been to this part of the world. But you do want to confirm with a message that that listing is available. And that's been something that just works out for me by and large, because it lets me know how swiftly the people will communicate back to me. And of course, it lets me know if the place is somewhere I want to go. And also, you want to make sure somebody's got at least, my rule of thumb is at least 3 to 5 reviews, so you can hear what other travelers had to say about that particular accommodation. And so as we get out of here, we're going to be maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. I want to again reiterate that Shift Enterprise Academy, we are preparing to have a few of what we call shift tours, business expeditions. And so we'll take a lot of the guesswork out of these types of expeditions for you by making sure we put you through the visa process. We have some pre-trainings you go through to prepare yourself for the trip, some of the itineraries of the people you're going to be meeting on the ground. You'll meet them beforehand during the sort of the vetting period to really get you ready for coming over here. And of course, we'll have some accommodations that we know the areas, or sometimes we'll know the owners. So again, we're more or less, and this is why it's something that I'm keeping it very personal with friends and family and members right now, because you're going to get a very, very personalized experience the first go around. And so the last thing you need, the second to last thing you need after your accommodations are there, is how am I going to get around once I'm on the ground? What's it like to be transported from A to B in that city, in that country? Because, many times we think we can apply that conventional wisdom that, I'm just going to Uber. Do they have Uber? Okay, I'm just going to get plugged in there. But in some countries, they have their own variation of these rideshare apps that is the more highly used, and you're going to get the better service. And so it's really important to do some of that legwork as well. Or some people, I've even seen foreigners that want to travel in a rental car. They want to do some sort of rental car, and they want to drive. And, these are your supermen that say, it's fine, I'm going to drive. And so that's fine too. Although I will say, of the people that I've assisted that have driven, they're 2 for 2 for having wrecks. Okay, so you take that in the bucket of soap as you want to, but they're 2 for 2 for having wrecks. And I don't drive for a reason, and it's simply because I don't understand the flow of traffic. If I'm in Houston tomorrow, I could pick up, and I know if I'm on the expressway, I'm going to be going 80. If I'm not going 80, I'm in trouble. Even people that travel from outside of Texas and go to Houston, they learn real quick that there's a different rhythm to that city. So I would caution on deciding to drive, especially in some of the cities that don't have the best roads, or people don't mind traffic signals the way we might in the Western world or the United States. And so the end thing is this, guys, with Shift, what we're planning or presenting to our members and to people that are going to deal with us, we're creating a concierge service. We want to make sure that we can offer you all the things we just said, but we take a lot of the guesswork out of it. So we built a network of people on the ground in the places that we'll go to. You can always expect to be able to have high level dialogues and conversations with people on the ground, and see not only what the business options are and some of the businesses that we serve, and decide if you think investing is a good idea. But you also get the chance to connect at a real level on the continent of Africa. And right now, there's a small percentage of the world that can actually say that. You've got your folks that are, full-time travelers and businessmen and women, but Africa being what we call this last frontier, this new frontier, there's a lot of people that have not been here. And contrary to popular belief, it's not overran by foreign interests. By and large, most African nations are still very much so indigenously ran. You can still make strong relationships with people and get stuff done in a short amount of time. But you need some sort of covering to be able to do that country to country, city to city. And so we want to help build that out on both the Western side with the Americans and on the African side. I've pledged Shift to be a bridge builder, and so that's what we're going to do. So, nonetheless, again, guys, my name's Ethan. I'm the founder. We usually have these myself, and I usually have my host here with me on Wednesdays. But tonight, I'm going at it alone, just kind of bringing you up to speed on the fact that we do have a couple of opportunities. The next one will be in March 13th through the 24th. You've got a chance to explore Uganda from the 13th through the 20th. You've got another chance to explore Kenya from the 13th through the 20th through the 24th. And so we're going to go out to Mombasa, Kenya by train. Whenever you're here on the Kenyan leg, you're going to get the chance to experience the Entebbe Business and Investment Summit on the Ugandan leg. And I'll actually be giving a keynote address during that particular event. So you get the chance to really be spotlighted during your time there with Shift Enterprise Academy. So that's all I have for tonight. I hope this is going to be something that's very informational for the first time traveler. I even hope that our professional business travelers can pick up something, especially as it relates to the mindset piece. All right. And so that's all we have. I'll be back next week with another show. Be sure to check out our channel. You can follow us on WhatsApp for periodic updates. Definitely reach out if you're looking forward to coming to the continent of Africa, specifically East Africa. We'd love to have you be a part of our family and the network that we're building. We actually have a membership drive going right now. So certainly reach out and we can see what we can build together. All right. Again, my name's Ethan. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Peace.